Hello, everyone. I thought all of us could use a little bit of soul care therapy today as many of us are going through the shelter in place situation during this coronavirus pandemic. And my question for all of us is today is how can we have peace or peace of mind as we go through this coronavirus situation? That is something that is the other side of anxiety, right? We talked a little bit about anxiety not too many days ago, but the question is how can we have lasting peace during this time? Well, I thought we would look at Philippians chapter 4 because the whole book of Philippians is a really good book for all of us to be reading right now. Uh, First of all, the book is about being content and having joy during difficult times or difficult circumstances. As some of you may know, Paul was actually in jail at this time, and for some of the things that he wrote in Philippians are really for the inner person. Um, it's keys to how to have lasting peace in really bad situations. And I think we're all would say that we're in a very difficult situation right now, not knowing what's coming down the pipeline or what decisions maybe some of us need to make. So I wanted to read um, chapter 4, and it starts in verse 4 to verse 8, and it says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your graciousness be known to everyone." And also to be aware that the Lord is near. Don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Verse 8 says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if is if anything is praiseworthy, dwell on these things. Do what you have learned and received and heard from me and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you." That is some really pertinent information for us right now. Here we have the Apostle Paul telling us not to worry about anything, but he wasn't aware of this pandemic, was he? It really doesn't matter because um, trusting in the Lord includes all scenarios, doesn't it? So, first of all, we need to call to mind that the Lord is near. That gives a level of peace when we're going through difficult times. Um, and Paul here is almost giving us a formula that helps us not to have any kind of worry or anxiety going on. He says, first of all, in everything, prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. So the first order of business is to orient yourself toward God and to pray and ask Him and talk to Him about the things that are troubling your heart. That's the first order of business. And he says that when we do this, when we orient ourselves toward God in this way and asking the Lord and talking to the Lord about our concerns, and then attached to that prayer, thanksgiving. That means you're calling to mind the things that you're thankful for during this time and the provisions that you have been given during this time. This is a season of life where we really do need to count our blessings. And in that gives a level of peace. And then he goes on in verse 8 to talk about how to think. This is a very important component in having peace in our life, is ordering the way that we think. And this leads me to the 3 points that I want to make here as a result of that reading. Um, For us to have a sense of peace, we really need to become self aware in the way that we think. It's not just really the way that we think, but it's also what we think. The way you think is the consistent direction in how you think, whether it's uh, do you typically think in a very positive orientation, or do you think consistently in a negative orientation? That's the way that you think. And what you think is the content that you dwell upon. So that's really important to be self-aware in how what you think and how you think. So you need to become very keen in being self-aware in your thinking processes. Uh, First of all, you need to realize that you are not your thoughts. This is important to understand. Um, that your thoughts really are you talking to you. So you are a person who talks to your person. That's important to understand because you are either surrounding your person with the negative inner self or a positive inner self. So you will talk more to you than anybody combined will ever talk to you. So surround your inner self with a very positive person. Just think about it in these terms. A lot of us, we don't really typically enjoy being around a negative person that's always speaking half truths or negative things, or they're just a Debbie Downer. We're not usually attracted to that kind of personality. So in your own person, you need to start shaping your thought life in a very positive environment, and because your thinking has a direct correlation to how you feel in your emotions. So it's very important to navigate your thinking in a way that will allow your positive emotions to emerge. A second thing that we need to do is to replace the false narratives in our mind with true narratives, the false information with true information. So that means to give your mind the full truth, not a half truth. A lot of times we are working on half truths or half assumptions most of the time. We need to not give ourselves half truths, and we certainly don't need to feed ourselves full lies, do we? And what it means to give ourselves the full truth would be to take in information holistically. So, what that would mean is, first of all, start from God's perspective. He has a full orbed understanding of all things, and this is why he can lead the Apostle Paul in telling us how we should be thinking. So we want to first start with God, and then we want to consider the past, present, and future in that context. And that helps you. So the way that we gain the full orbed picture and we feed ourselves full truths would be to start with prayer, talking to God, just like Paul was telling us to do. And then to consistently partake of the Bible, because the Bible gives us an understanding of ourselves, it gives us an understanding of other people, and it also gives us, most importantly, an understanding of God, and in that we can understand our world. So it's really important that during this time and this strange season that we're all going through is to spend time reading the scriptures. Take time today. It is Sunday. Take time today, the time that you would be naturally going to church, and read the entire book of Philippians. And then sit down and engage with it. Write down, after you read chapter 1, write down things that really stuck out to you, and prayer, the way you can pray Philippians 1 to the Lord, and even journal about chapter 1 and chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. You would be amazed at how the Bible can come alive and inform your inner self when you treat it that way. And so the final thing would be, and the most important thing would be to seek the Lord and work on trusting Him and loving Him. Isaiah 26:3 tells us that it says that you will keep in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. The most fundamental ingredient in acquiring peace really has to do with how we relate and how we respond to God. Ultimately, our peace comes from from that point of view. And when we're talking about peace, we're talking about inner peace because external peace is very fluctuating. It's something that can come and go as our lives can be thrown in upheavals, as this global upheaval demonstrates. Um, or it can have a very predictable environment at times, which we do enjoy. But inner peace comes when you are relating to God properly, responding to God properly, and to your world properly. And when you do that, that gives you a level of peace, regardless if the world is upside down or you have to navigate very even tragic events at times. So this is the way that we can have of mind in a very unpeaceful world right now. So I want to encourage you to seek peace through those means. I think it would be very beneficial for you and be very helpful for you. This is taking care of your soul, your inner man. And that's a very important quality to be taking very good care of right now. Before the emergence of psychology in the late 19th and early 20th century, we had a lot of soul care activity being cared for by people like Martin Luther and church fathers and priests and pastors and people like that. Um, it turns out that when you go back and you read some of the material, like Martin Luther's thousands of letters to his parishioners on, things like melancholy and anxiety and conflict and those kinds of things, that um, they had some pretty wise things to say about the soul and taking care of your soul. So you have the ability to take care of your soul and to pay close attention to the way that you think and what you think. The old adage is true, that we can't help, if a bird flies over our head, but we certainly can keep it from nesting in our hair. And so that's a good way to think about how to think, is to not let negative thoughts nest in your mind, or ungodly thoughts to nest in your mind, but to put those out and replace those. So seeking to become self-aware of your thinking is important. Replace your false narratives with true narratives. And above all, seek the Lord and work on trusting Him and loving Him. That goes a long way in giving you a sense of inner peace. I hope this was helpful today, and spend some time in the Word today. Thanks a lot. Bye.